Have you ever had one of those days, or maybe weeks, where you feel like no matter how hard you try, you just can't get ahead? And that little voice in your head starts whispering that you're lazy? Well, what if that voice is completely wrong? Today, we're going to tear down that idea, what we're calling the laziness lie, and figure out what's really going on. Just sit with that for a second. This one idea could totally reframe years of beating yourself up. If you're feeling guilty about not doing enough, it's not some kind of character flaw. It's a symptom. It's a sign that you're stuck. And this is the cycle, isn't it? It's so familiar. You wake up exhausted, you somehow push through the day, you make all these promises to yourself about tomorrow. But then tomorrow comes and you're in the exact same spot. And the go-to explanation is always, well, it must be me. I guess I'm just lazy. We're here to show you that's not even close to the full story. So let's start by actually putting this whole concept, this word, laziness, under a microscope. What are we really talking about when we use that label? Okay, so this is the classic textbook definition, right? It implies it's a moral choice, a conscious decision to just not feel like putting in the effort. It's simple, it's pretty judgmental, and, as we're about to find out, it's also incredibly misleading. And this is the question that changes everything. What if that inability to get going, the procrastination, that feeling of being totally stuck in mud, has nothing to do with willpower? What if it's the result of all these invisible barriers, some inside our own heads and some in the world all around us? All right, let's start by looking inward. Our brains are these ridiculously complex machines, and sometimes the very systems that are meant to protect us they can get stuck. They create a state that looks a lot like laziness from the outside, but from the inside, it just feels like paralysis. So we're going to look at 3 really distinct internal states that almost always get mislabeled as just being lazy. Each one has a totally different cause, but you know what? They all lead to that same feeling of just being unable to move forward. Now, the key word on this slide is friction. See, for a brain with ADHD, all those executive functions, things like planning or just starting a task or switching from one thing to another, they're all impaired. So a simple action, like, say, sending an email, can feel like you're trying to swim against a powerful current. It takes a huge amount of energy just to keep your head above water, never mind actually get somewhere. And this analogy is just perfect. It so brilliantly describes that feeling of being completely overwhelmed. An ADHD brain often has a much harder time filtering out what's not important. So every little sound, every notification, every stray thought can feel like it has the same volume, and it leads to this massive sensory and cognitive overload until the whole system just crashes. That's not idleness, it's a system failure. Now let's look at something related but different. You might not have heard of cognitive disengagement syndrome, or CDS. As you can see here, while ADHD is often a struggle to sustain your focus, CDS is a struggle to even engage it in the first place. It feels like this constant mental fog, a lot of daydreaming, just slow processing. So what you have are 2 totally different neurological experiences that both get slapped with the exact same lazy label. And finally, there's this thing called functional freeze. This is pure survival mode. Think about it. When you're facing intense, nonstop stress, like a crazy demanding job or a tough situation at home, and you can't fight your way out and you can't run away, your nervous system just kind of hits the emergency brake. It puts you on autopilot. You're still going through the motions, you're hitting your deadlines, but inside, you feel numb, disconnected, totally shut off. Okay, so we've looked inside the brain, but of course, we don't live in a bubble. So now let's zoom out and look at how the actual systems we live in can build the very traps we mistake for our own personal failures. This quote just cuts right through a really harmful and persistent stereotype. The idea that people are poor because they're lazy completely ignores the massive mental energy it takes just to survive. Juggling unpredictable finances, insecure work hours, the constant threat of something going wrong, that's not relaxing, it's utterly exhausting. And this is what economists call the scarcity cycle. It's a truly vicious feedback loop. The stress of not having enough literally reduces your mental bandwidth. It makes it harder to make those good, long-term decisions that could actually help you get out of the situation. It's not a moral failure, it's a cognitive trap. And the impact of this? It starts so early. This number is a stark reality. By the time they're 15 years old, kids from low socioeconomic backgrounds are 7 times more likely to be underperforming in school. This isn't about talent or ability, it's about the crushing cumulative weight
of systemic disadvantages. And beyond just scarcity, there's another trap, the effort trap. From a young age, we're taught that if we just follow the rules and work really, really hard, we'll succeed. But the system doesn't always reward hard work. It often rewards completely different things: owning assets, having leverage through systems, being in the right strategic position. So when you're trapped just putting in effort with no multiplier, you burn out. Not because you're lazy, but because your effort isn't actually moving the needle. So let's put it all together. If it's not laziness, then what is it? By combining these internal and external factors, we can finally start to name the real enemies.
These are the real enemies. It's the friction inside your own mind. It's the scarcity cycle and the effort trap in the world around you. It's the soul-crushing weight of burnout from trying to operate in a system that wasn't built for you. Laziness is just a simple, lazy word we use to avoid looking at these much more complex and powerful forces. Okay, so understanding the problem is a massive first step. But the next one is, how do we get unstuck? The key isn't to just try harder. It's actually to be gentler. It's about learning how to thaw from that frozen state. Now, these steps might seem almost too small, right? But they are incredibly powerful because they work on a deep physiological level. They send little signals of safety to your nervous system. Gentle movement helps regulate your body. Humming actually stimulates something called the vagus nerve, which calms you down. Even what you eat matters. And this last one is crucial. Just allowing yourself to want something with no pressure to do anything about it reconnects you to your own desires, a feeling that gets totally lost when you're in that freeze state. But really, here's the most important step of all. Guilt is an energy vampire. It just sucks away the very resources you need to recover. So making the active choice to rest and to do it without judging yourself for it is not a failure. It is a strategic retreat. In fact, it's often the most productive thing you can possibly do when your whole system is overloaded. So as we wrap things up here, I want to leave you with one final idea to take with you to chew on. What if we just completely reframed rest? What if it's not the opposite of productivity, but the absolute prerequisite for it? What if instead of blaming yourself for being exhausted, you saw it as a clear signal that you have to recharge before you can even think about moving forward? Maybe, just maybe, being lazy is the wisest thing you can do.